There's a major update in seeding implications for the 2025 Stanley Cup Playoffs, in which the Colorado Avalanche still do not know who they will face in the first round of the 2025 Stanley Cup Playoffs, with just under 2 weeks to go until the playoffs are fully underway. We're going to dive into all these seeding implications and how it's going to affect this Colorado Avalanche team that has clinched the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs right here today on Avalanche Digest. But before we do so, I want to remind you to make sure that you're subscribed to Avalanche Digest here on YouTube. Take a look at this stat here. 64% of y'all that are tuning in and watching Avalanche Digest are not subscribed to the channel. If you're coming to watch these videos, if you're tuning in, it means you're interested. You want to get your daily news from Avalanche Digest about your Colorado Avalanche. It is the best place, the one-stop shop to get all the latest on Colorado Avalanche news. Make sure that you're subscribed. It helps us and it helps you because you're able to get all the latest Colorado Avalanche news that you need to know right here exclusively on Avalanche Digest. As I said a few minutes ago, we are under 2 weeks away from the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. Let's dive into the implications of what this Colorado Avalanche team expects to face in the first round of the playoffs now that they've officially clinched their spot in the playoffs. So as we look at the playoffs, if they started today, this bracket is as of April 7th. Right now, and this has been the case for a few weeks now, the Avs would face the Stars in the first round of the playoffs. That series would begin in Dallas, so home ice would not be granted to Colorado. They would play 2 games in Dallas and then travel back home to the Mile High City for a first-round playoff series against the Dallas Stars. And now it's been talked about not just within the world of Colorado Avalanche hockey, but all the way around the league. These two teams right here are two of the scariest teams in all of the Western Conference as far as clinching the playoff goes. It's even predicted that the Avs or the Stars are going to be the team that is in the Stanley Cup final from the Western side. So if those two teams are to play each other in the first round, it's essentially who can get out of a juggernaut of a first-round matchup and potentially make a run all the way to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, as I said, over the last few weeks, it's been an expectation almost that is the matchup that we're going to see, which raises a really interesting conversation because Mikko Rantanen, who was originally traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, was then traded to the Dallas Stars. So he is playing for the Avalanche's arguably largest rival in the league, and a team that also has a lot of depth and a lot of skill level and a really strong potential to make it all the way to the Stanley Cup championship. The Stars are hungry. They have not won a cup in a long time, and it's a now or never scenario for them. They have the roster to do so, the coaching to do so, and they're really hoping that they're able to win a Stanley Cup. And so the Stars, especially with Mikko Rantanen now, it's a little bit personal for Colorado, and they are hungry to get as far as they can through the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, as I said, it's kind of been an expectation that we're going to see the Stars and the Avs face in the first round of the playoffs, but there's major implications and major changes happening in the Central Division in which we may see a different first round matchup, or better yet, we may even see the Avs somehow catch the Stars. They'd still be playing Dallas in the first round, which has all the implications that I described a few seconds ago, but they would get home ice, which would greatly benefit them in the first round of this playoffs. We take a look at the Central Division standings as of today. The Jets still in first place. I think they've had the first place spot secured for basically the entirety of the season with 108 points. You look at the Dallas Stars in second place there. They're only 3 points off of the Winnipeg Jets. They have a game in hand, but they have the potential to catch the Jets. And if the Stars were to catch the Jets, that's when things get interesting. If the Stars catch the Jets, the Stars would face one of the wildcard teams on the Western Conference side, and the Avs would have a repeat first-round matchup in which they would play the Jets, and they would not be granted home ice. They'd have the exact same scenario as last season, where we saw the Avs beat the Jets in the first round. 4-1 was the series, and they moved on to then lose to the Stars in the second round. So depending on what the Stars are able to do as far as catching the Jets, that is going to play a really large role in what we see for the Colorado Avalanche and their look at their Stanley Cup championship run this season. Let's take a look at these 3 teams' remaining schedules, because a large piece of this as far as where these teams are going to end up in the seeding and in the final standings of the Central Division. It has a lot to do with the games that they have left. We take a look first at the remaining Colorado schedule. You look at the two previous games, a win over a hungry Columbus team who's trying to get a spot on the eastern side of the playoffs as well. A dominant win, if you will. 7 goals scored by 7 different goal scorers, and only 1 out of the 7 goals was a power play goal. So that game showing all the depth that the Colorado Avalanche have at this point in the season. And then a unfortunate loss over the St. Louis Blues. The Blues are on a 12-game winning streak tear. It is absolutely insane that they are able to continue to win these games and do everything that they can to try to snag the best possible playoff spot. The St. Louis Blues have their own interesting story going on, picking up head coach Jim Montgomery, who's fired by the Boston Bruins. And the Boston Bruins now in a dumpster fire of a scenario, not making the playoffs for the first time in over 6 years. But either way, 2 matchups against the Blues over the last 2 weeks, I believe, and Colorado was unable to get either of those and get the 2 points in their favor. The most recent matchup, a loss 5-4 against St. Louis. It was a close one. The Avs are definitely a third period team, and they were almost able to bring it back and tie the game late, but they were unable to do so, and they were unable to stop the 12-game tear that the St. Louis Blues are on right now. The Avs have 4 games left. They play 2 games at home, Vegas and Vancouver. Vegas, obviously, trying to get a strong spot in the playoffs as well. So trying to get 2 points against them is crucial. And then playing Vancouver, Los Angeles, and Anaheim are all games where getting as many points as possible is going to be crucial for Colorado. Vancouver and Los Angeles also obviously in a very interesting position in which they are pretty much guaranteed a spot in the playoffs, but they are hungry to try to get the seeding as best as possible. And so Colorado getting 2 points and trying to stay strong against those 2 teams is going to be huge. And then obviously closing their season out at Anaheim. Hopefully they can get the 2 points there and snag the win. Anaheim almost has no chance of making the playoffs. But these last 4 games for Colorado, very interesting, and getting points in as many of these games as possible is going to really benefit the seeding for the Colorado Avalanche in the upcoming playoffs that we have right around the corner. We take a look now at the Dallas Stars remaining schedule. They have 5 games left. They're on a 2-game losing streak, losing to the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Minnesota Wild. They got a point in that OT loss to the Minnesota Wild, but on the other end of things, that's a huge win for Minnesota, who's teetering on snagging that second wild card spot in the West as well. So the interesting thing about the rest of the schedule for the Dallas Stars, they're second in the Central right now with 103 points. That second game there in their last 5 against Winnipeg, that's going to be massive as far as Central implications go for the playoffs this season. If Dallas is able to beat Winnipeg, especially if they come off of a win against Vancouver as well, depending on what Winnipeg does in the remainder of their games, which we'll look at their schedule in a second, that could put Dallas in the first place spot. And then if they're able to hold on against 3 what should be easy games against the Utah Hockey Club, the Detroit Red Wings, and the Nashville Predators, all who we will most likely or guaranteed not see in the playoffs. I believe Detroit still potentially has a chance to somehow come back and snag a spot in the playoffs, but Utah and Nashville are almost essentially not going to be seen in the playoffs this season. But if Dallas is able to essentially win out, beat Vancouver, get the massive win over the number 1 in the Central Winnipeg Jets, and then win out against those 3 not so difficult games, that changes everything as far as seeding goes for the Colorado Avalanche and just the Western Conference playoff picture in general. And to be quite honest with you, in my opinion, I think that is what we want. I think we want Dallas to win out. I think we want them to be playing that wild card team in the first round, because that gives Colorado an opportunity to kind of settle into the playoffs like they did last year. They had a very strong performance over a really strong Winnipeg Jets team with a struggling Connor Hellebuck in the first round. If they're able to do that again this season, playing the Jets in the first round and then the Stars in the second round, I think that the Avs have a much better look at beating the Stars in the second round than they did last year. We take one more look at the remaining schedule for the Winnipeg Jets. In their last 2, they swept the Vegas Golden Knights and they lost to the Utah Hockey Club. The Jets have a very interesting schedule as well. They also have 5 more games remaining. The Jets and the Stars both have 1 more game remaining than the Colorado Avalanche do. But you take a look at those next 2 games coming up. The Jets play the St. Louis Blues tonight. That's a massive implication game for playoffs. As we know, the St. Louis Blues are on a 12-game winning streak tear, and they're actually looking to clinch the playoffs tonight with a win over Winnipeg. So a win for Winnipeg there would be huge. And then, of course, playing the Dallas Stars, the number 1 and the number 2 team in the Central, will clash on Thursday, April 10th. And whoever wins that game, I think that's going to play a huge role as to where they end up in the 2025 playoff picture. That follows with Chicago, and it'll be an interesting Canadian clash between the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers also have clinching scenarios lining up tonight, Monday, April 7th, and then they finish their season against the Anaheim Ducks as well. But this interesting clash we have going on between the Winnipeg Jets and the Dallas Stars, and of course the Colorado Avalanche. We take one more look at this if the playoffs started today simulation bracket. Right now the Avs and the Stars will play each other, and the Jets and the Wild would face each other. But if the Stars are somehow able to catch the Jets, the Stars would take that number 1 spot and play the lower wildcard team, which right now is the Minnesota Wild, and the Avs and the Jets would play each other in that first round of the playoffs. So it all is going to come down to these last few games that all 3 of these teams have. The Avs obviously have a game in hand, as opposed to the Stars and the Jets having 5 games left each. But the Stars and the Jets, arguably with harder schedules remaining, with each having 5 games left in the season. And the playoff implications are going to be very interesting as we look to the rest of the season and we start to wonder where everyone's going to end up. And for the first time in a while, it's starting to become an unknown as to whether or not we're going to see the Avs play the Stars or the Jets in the first round of the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. Things are getting heated up and very exciting as we look to the remainder of the regular season. And the Stanley Cup playoffs are right around the corner. The Colorado Avalanche hungry to try to make another run at their 4th franchise Stanley Cup championship.